Two politicians who are with us for the next 20 minutes. Caroline Dinenage is the Conservative MP for Gosport, and Paul Harvey is the Labour candidate for Basingstoke in the next election. What's your reaction then to what the Chancellor was doing this week?
For me, it kind of exposed the whole area of how austerity has failed, because to go out there with government debt increasing and to see the impact that austerity has had on people and the way it's damaged their lives. We've got 2,500 people that are using the Basingstoke Food Bank this year. We've got 4,000 households who are living in fuel poverty. That's the real impact of austerity. That's the real issues that people are living in. Working, people in full-time jobs who are still having to rely on housing benefit and working tax credits in order to pay their mortgage or in order to pay their rent. The reality that people are facing is huge out there on austerity.
And he's got a good story to tell, and he's got money to spend, it seems.
But it's not new money. This is recycled money in most cases. This is new
these things
announcements.
aren't going to happen. These roads, the flood defences are happening.
They were promising the roads in 2010 and they scrapped the programme entirely. And 6 months out from a general election, here we are again announcing the road schemes that were cancelled less than 4 years ago. It's not new money. Right. Whether or not the schemes are delivered is really important, and we hope the schemes will be delivered. But it's nothing new.
Caroline.
Well, look, it has been a really tough time. It's been a tough time all over Europe and in actual fact in all the emerging nations as well. And yet to have got to the stage where we've still will have half the deficit this year, and we've got the biggest growth in the developed world, I think is an incredible testament to the really tough decisions that we've had to take. Really difficult choices about welfare changes and about cuts in public services.
All the people in the food banks that Paul's talking about.
And debt's doubled since 2010.
Yes, but all the decisions we've taken are about the long-term economic future of this country. They're all about, building on the future and enabling us not to get into the problems that we were led in by the previous government. We had a huge mess to sort out.
Low-paid jobs, 0 hours contracts. That's not the economy we want.
To discuss the place that you are in. Very different places, aren't you? You wait ages for a government announcement to come. How can we streamline this whole process of planning development and get people together rather than in opposition and picking holes in things?
It's really important. I think consultation is the key, communication is the key, bringing people along with you, not doing these sort of top-down building projects that we used to see under the last government, making sure that the local community are all consulted.
You haven't been able to get the numbers through in the way you would have liked to have done at the beginning of this Parliament.
700,000 new houses, Peter, that's not to be sniffed at, in these garden city... Yeah,
built so far?
Yeah.
Or started?
No,
or?
yeah, 700,000 by the end of this Parliament, which is, really quite significant. At the moment, the average age of a first-time buyer is something like 33. Unless my mum and dad would have torn out their hair if I'd have still been living with them at that age.
Your dad did tear his hair out. Sorry.
That is a really important point. I mean, what people need to see in planning is that it means something to them and that they have a part and a stake in it, and it isn't done to them. And the affordable housing question, we can build all these houses, thousands of houses, and to be fair, Eric Pickles is doing his job of overturning many local councils in telling them they will have the development no matter what.
Yes.
The point is, will that be houses that people can genuinely afford, or rent for that matter? And it's so important. That's such a big issue in the south, that we actually have affordable housing.
Well, it does seem to be happening, is what Caroline's saying.
Yes, 250 of the 700,000.
Housing waiting list is over 7,000 people in Basingstoke. The only way the council's being able to deal with it is to gerrymander the housing list and half the number of people on the list. Doesn't mean those people disappear or their housing issues disappear. We need to build houses that people can afford.
The M3 is such an artery, isn't it?
It's so important.
And so you'd welcome this sort of spending?
Of course. I mean, infrastructure spending is critical to join the M3. I mean, literally, in terms of our arteries for business and for residents and communities as well. It's what connects us all. And I think it's so important. And that's why having the commitment and the certainty that the money is going to be there, it isn't just jammed tomorrow, but the resources will be available and will do what people want them to do and what business wants it to do is so important.
Yeah, now Jeff didn't want to say, but this does feel like roads are now popular amongst the public, that it's a vote winner, otherwise they wouldn't be doing
But
this.
it's a balance. It's a balance between the major strategic issues, such as the junctions on the motorways, but also local roads. With all the house building that's being proposed, infrastructure is really important, and there isn't the money coming out of the developers, there isn't the money coming out of government or councils because of austerity, because of the cuts, to deal with the volume of house building we're going to see set against the infrastructure that is required. So our smaller roads, the roads on which people live, are just as important to many people as the main arterial roads, as the big ticket items.
Jeff, does that worry you? I mean, if there are more council cuts, which it looks like there will have to be, partly with paying for this infrastructure, and they can't repair smaller roads or even larger roads through the local authority budget?
That is obviously an important consideration, and I think we have to be honest with ourselves and look at the scale of the road network and decide what we can afford to maintain and look after that better than we have been doing. But I think it goes back to my main point that communications is vital.
Yeah.
And I've remembered the fourth one that was our strategic ask, which was the most important one, so I'd like to come back to it, which was the A3 around Guildford.
Yes.
And for the first time, we have the Department of Transport identifying that as a major problem that needs to be addressed. It's very difficult to do, and it will be challenging, along with some of the projects that were in your piece. But I think it's important that the negative effect of the congestion around Guildford has been recognised and now will be addressed.
The key question for you, I think, though, is we're going to have an election in May.
Yeah.
Will this plan survive into a new government? What confidence do you have?
Speechless. That's
You
speechless.
don't actually know. That's the
No,
point.
of
Business
course I
doesn't
don't.
have that certainty. And therefore, does it provide the confidence which business needs in order to make investment?
Well, if you choose a Conservative government, then you know this money is going to be spent there.
But we don't know. I mean, he's promising these things will happen. It's not a cheque that he can necessarily honour.
No, but what you've got to understand is that everything this government's done is about trying to drive the growth that this country so badly needs. It's trying to address this debt by driving the growth, by doing it in a really fundamentally healthy way, which is why you're seeing the biggest investment in the railways since Victorian times, the biggest investment in the roads since the 1970s. The previous government road building was lower than in Namibia, in Slovenia, in Cyprus. We just weren't building any roads, we weren't investing in the railways. And now this is so important.
It's not the case, you say.
It's not the case. You cancelled the entire programme in 2010. You came into government and you cancelled half of these programmes.
And, you know, nothing was done and businesses were suffering.
And the difference was that they were 4 or 5 year programmes. They were programmes designed over the long term to give the certainty to business. And the government comes in and the very first thing it does is cancel it. Now we're back again, here we are 4 years later with the same list of roads, money that we're not guaranteed to get, and it's the certainty that really matters. We want 4 or 5 years of commitment.
the Labour government will now give them that certainty by saying that they will embrace it.
And also, Paul, I mean, and you ought to pick this up. I mean, we're all saying here, it seems that roads now are a vote winner. The budget... we're all almost calling it a budget. There's so much in this autumn statement. It does appear to have been popular. The stamp duty as well.
But it's not just about what's a vote winner, Peter. It's about what's the right thing to do to get the economics of the country moving. That's the only way you're going to make people feel more money in their pockets, is if the country is growing, if the economy is growing, if welfare is sensible, if people have got the right skills, if we're doing all, you know, if house prices are manageable and we're not taxing people so much on stamp duty. You know, if we're doing all the things that give people more money in their pockets, it's only going to be good for the economy.
And one of the things that does need to be added to this equation is public transport. Where are we with the bus networks in our area? Where are we with rail? The overcrowded trains going into the middle of London, let alone coming to Southampton. All of that has to play an important part as well.
That rail is important in all areas. What about buses? Doesn't matter quite so much to business, but to the left.
But buses matter a lot to the LEP. Yes, I stress rail already, and of course that's important, and there is a Wessex rail strategy out for consultation at the moment, and we'll be trying to make sure that we get enhanced capacity on that. But I think there is a whole package of sustainable transport for each of the main urban areas within our patch, where you look at buses, you look at cycling, you look at walking, you look at having some joined up thinking about that, enabling people to move around by sustainable transport. I think it will be very important to reduce the congestion inside our towns in future.
We have examples where we've lost jobs because of it.
OK, well, let's just move on to another area of the autumn statement. And thank you very much, Jeff, for coming in and talking to us.